More than 1.6 billion tons of hazardous materials are shipped annually in the United States, with more than 1.2 million hazmat shipments occurring each day across all modes of transportation. A wide variety of flammables, corrosives, and toxic materials are transported by highway vehicles, rail cars, aircraft, and marine vessels. Additionally, there are more than 2.4 million miles of gas and liquid pipelines in the United States, running through both rural and densely populated areas. In this country, 99.9% of the hazardous material shipments by rail arrive at their destination without incident. However, when an incident does occur, it is critical to be prepared to respond safely. As a first responder, prompt and safe actions can reduce or prevent harm to the environment, property, people, and yourself. Failure to respond correctly and in a timely manner could have devastating consequences. Emergency responders should always follow basic safety guidelines when responding to an incident on or near railroad property, and be sure to check in and receive a safety briefing from the appropriate railroad personnel. Before entering a rail yard or stepping into the foul of a railroad track, confirm that all traffic on the line you are working on or adjacent to has been stopped, and that the rail equipment has been properly secured. Failure to do so could result in severe injury or death. When working on railroad property, you must always remain aware of traffic on any track, in any direction, at any time. Most rail yards use RCO, or remote control operations, meaning the locomotives will not have a conductor or engineer on board. These locomotives will have a yellow blinking light to indicate remote control operation. While the RCO operator is typically within the line of sight of the locomotive, this is not always the case. If you see a train approaching, be aware that it may be traveling faster than it appears and could be upon you sooner than you expect. You should always stay clear of the tracks until the approaching train has passed or it has been confirmed as stopped in accordance with roadway workers' rules. If you are going to be working 9 feet or closer to a track, you must have proper protection provided by an authorized railroad employee. Finally, trains typically extend about 3 feet beyond the rail, and there is always the potential danger of loose lading or strapping hanging even farther, posing a serious safety risk. If you are responding to an emergency near a railroad crossing, the incident commander should assign a person to call the owning operating railroad via the blue and white emergency notification sign, ENS, posted on either the wooden crossbuck post or on the signal mast beneath the flashing lights. The ENS sign provides the railroad's emergency number to call for a crossing incident, and the DOT crossing number that will provide the railroad with the specific location where you are located. Responders can also utilize the Federal Railroad Administration, FRA's, Rail Crossing Locator app in the event of an emergency or to report a safety concern. Contacting the owning operating railroad can assist first responders by providing a waybill for the rail car or rail cars involved in the incident and offers an opportunity to communicate with the hazardous materials manager or dangerous goods officer responsible for that territory. When arriving at the scene of a derailment or a potential hazardous material release from a rail car, first responders should make every effort to locate either the train crew or a representative of the owning operating railroad. You must find the employee responsible for the shipping papers, typically the conductor, although it may be the engineer if they are traveling alone. Keep in mind that the train consist may be provided electronically, and it will include special handling instructions for certain hazardous materials. Confirm with the railroad that the train has been secured before approaching or climbing on any equipment. It is important that if you are given a paper copy of the train consist, you must make a copy for your use and return the original to the conductor or another authorized rail employee. If responding within a rail yard, request that the yard master or yard manager notify other employees of your presence in the yard so they know you are on scene and can look out for your presence. The initial scene size-up is critical when responding to a potential rail incident. Responders must take necessary steps to ensure life safety, including their own, as well as protecting the environment. Care should be taken to conduct as much of the size-up process as possible from a position of safety. If possible, all incidents should be approached from an uphill and upwind direction. Establish a safe perimeter and assess the nature and extent of the hazardous materials involved. Gathering accurate incident information in an expedient manner assists responders in appropriately implementing protective actions based on key size-up factors to reduce the risk of exposures, injuries, or deaths. First responders should attempt to identify the hazardous material within the rail car by entering the unique Equipment ID number, which is located on both sides, both ends, and sometimes on top of the car utilizing the Ask Rail app, which provides real-time data on trains and rail cars. We will discuss more about this critical mobile app in just a few minutes. Responders also need to identify the placards, which are on both ends and both sides of the rail car. Some hazardous materials that are transported by rail car are required to have the name of the hazardous materials stenciled on the side of the car. Once the car is identified, responders should report its position, whether it is upright, leaning, or rolled onto its side. Responders also should report if the car is on fire, leaking a liquid or a gas, and the specific location of the release. For example, this could include the manway cover, protective housing, pressure relief device, or bottom outlet valve. Most rail cars shipping hazardous materials in the United States are general service tank cars used for transporting liquids. These tank cars often carry energy products such as crude oil, ethanol, gasoline, diesel, fuel, monomers, and acids, and operate at working pressures between 65 and 100 psi. High-pressure tank cars have a working pressure ranging from above 100 psi up to 600 psi. These cars typically transport compressed gases, such as liquefied petroleum gas, butane, anhydrous ammonia, chlorine, carbon dioxide, argon, and a variety of other gases. At an operations level, first responders need to maintain defensive measures and request support from a local or county hazardous materials team to assist in containment and control measures, evacuating impacted communities, and/or sheltering in place. Incident objectives are the responsibility of the on-scene incident commander and should be carried out as needed. After gathering initial information, responders should assess the surrounding terrain to determine whether the product is migrating across the ground into a ditch line. It is critical to identify environmentally sensitive areas such as storm drains, streams, creeks, rivers, lakes, or swamps that may be impacted. Responders must also determine wind direction, as gases and vapors can migrate into nearby communities or accumulate in ditches and low-lying areas, presenting flammability or inhalation hazards. Responding to hazardous material incidents requires careful consideration, including an understanding of the container, the commodity involved, and the specific situational factors. This includes conducting a thorough assessment of the container for damage or stress, and environmental considerations. Involve and use all available resources to support informed decision-making, as conditions can change rapidly. The potential for catastrophic container failure or large-scale spills should always be accounted for in the initial incident action plan. Product and environmental conditions should be monitored closely in case adjustments to the initial protective actions are needed. Is there a spill or leak? If applicable, identify what is on fire and assess what could potentially be affected by the fire. Determine any stressors that might be affecting the containers. What are the incident exposures? Evaluate weather conditions, including wind speed and direction, temperature, rain, snow, or ice. If flammable materials are involved and leaking but not on fire, determine whether you can control or eliminate potential ignition sources, such as running locomotives, refrigerated boxcars, other operating equipment, or possible ignition sources from nearby buildings. Understanding the type of chemicals present and their potential reactions is crucial during an incident. Responders should use available technology, resources, and equipment. All emergency responders should be familiar with the layout and contents of the Emergency Response Guidebook, known as the ERG, before an incident occurs. During an incident, the ERG is to be used to quickly identify the hazards associated with the materials involved. The white pages at the front of the guide contain all the necessary information on how and when to use the ERG. These pages include a flowchart that walks users through the decision-making process, starting with the identification of the hazardous material and guiding you through protective actions and/or possible evacuation efforts. This flowchart should be reviewed well in advance of any incident. Remember, the ERG is intended for use during the initial response to an incident involving suspected hazardous materials, and it is designed to guide responders through the first 15 minutes to an hour of the incident. Another critical resource for emergency responders during a railroad emergency is the Ask Rail app. However, the Ask Rail app should never be used as a substitute for contacting the railroad directly. The Ask Rail app is easy to use and designed for use during a rail incident involving hazmat. While the menu layout may vary slightly between different platform versions, functionality remains consistent across all devices. When a responder first arrives on the scene, they simply need to launch the app and enter the equipment ID of the rail car or locomotive in question. This will immediately bring up specific information related to the rail car or locomotive. Although the Ask Rail app provides real-time information on the train, it is still essential to contact the owning operating railroad to obtain the most current and accurate information. When looking up a rail car, the information provided will include the contents of the rail car and whether it is loaded or empty, the hazard class of the material, the packing group, if applicable, and the name and phone number of the railroad that the car is on, along with emergency contact information. The Ask Rail app can also identify the type of rail car involved in the incident, which can be beneficial when conducting a damage assessment. When looking up a locomotive number in Ask Rail, the app will provide key information, such as the amount of fuel it holds or whether it holds alternative fuels, and whether it is an AC or DC locomotive. This is important because AC locomotives have capacitor banks that must be properly de-energized before responders can safely approach or begin work. You will need to confirm with railroad personnel that the AC locomotive has been properly de-energized. In addition, before shutting down a locomotive, it is imperative that you confirm with the proper railroad authority that the locomotive and train have had the appropriate handbrakes applied. To eliminate the danger of rolling equipment, the Ask Rail app provides emergency contact numbers for the major Class 1 railroads. You can access this information by tapping Railroad Contact Info at the bottom of the app screen. The Ask Rail app also includes most short-line railroads, as not all responses will involve only a Class 1 railroad. If a first responder is unable to access the app, they can still obtain Ask Rail data through their Emergency Communications Center. If you are an Emergency Communications Center interested in a web app version of Ask Rail, call 1-877-724-5462 or email support@askrail.us. Access to Ask Rail is also available by calling Chemtrek, the leading source of 24/7 support and information during hazardous material incidents for emergency responders for more than 50 years. Chemtrek's team of trained and experienced emergency support specialists have access to Ask Rail and can provide this critical information to emergency responders when it's needed most. Utilizing tools such as the ERG, Cameo, NIOSH Resources, Ask Rail app, or by contacting Chemtrek, first responders can better understand the properties and risks of the chemicals involved and begin setting up appropriate defensive measures. Additionally, railroad hazmat managers or dangerous goods officers have access to critical documentation such as safety data sheets, train consists, and car waybills. These resources provide critical information to first responders, helping them make informed decisions during hazmat incidents. During a hazardous materials incident, every second counts. Emergency responders rely on vital resources like Chemtrek to provide immediate support and guidance.
Thank you for calling Chemtrek. This is Monica. What is your emergency?
Hey, good morning. This is Lieutenant Tracy with the Homewood Fire Department. We're on the scene of a derailment. We've got a tank car that is on fire. We need assistance confirming the hazardous materials involved.
Okay. Lieutenant, were there any injuries or exposures?
No injuries at this time, and the tank car is actively on fire.
Okay, I can definitely help you with that. What is a good callback phone number for you in case we got disconnected?
Sure, it's 708-602-2409.
Okay, thank you so much, Lieutenant. And what about the tank car? Can you tell me, was there a UN number that you found, or?
Yeah, the UN number is 1267, and we need some help in setting up a safety perimeter.
All right. And I also want to confirm with you, have there been any waterways or drains impacted?
There's a river nearby, but it's not been impacted.
What about the shipper? Were you able to identify a shipper?
The shipper is not known at this time, and we're not sure how much product has been released.
Okay, that's all right. Stand by while I look up some additional information on crude oil. Now, regarding the safety perimeter, since the tank car is on fire, isolate for 800 meters in all directions. Be sure to eliminate all ignition sources and make sure that your responders are wearing all appropriate PPE. I also want to make sure that you initiate containment procedures as well. What I'm going to do is send you a copy of that safety data sheet via email immediately. And what is your email address?
All right, great, thank you. That would be helpful. You can send it to firedepartment@homewood.com. Chemtrek confirmed it's crude oil, so go ahead and get started setting up the perimeter.
And was there anything else I can assist with today?
Not at this time. Thank you for the information.
All right, Lieutenant, if you have any further questions or concerns, give us a call back.
Chemtrek provides quick access to the largest network that connects you with everyone involved: manufacturers, shippers, carriers, and government agencies. We are equipped to handle any situation and any class of hazardous material. Toxicology and medical specialists are available to aid in hazmat health and safety. Safety data sheets, also known as an SDS, are a valuable tool for responders to effectively and safely manage hazardous materials during a rail incident. The SDS will contain hazard information on a chemical, such as chemical and physical properties, health and environmental hazards, and protective measures in case of a release. With comprehensive information from safety data sheets, responders can take informed actions to protect themselves, the public, and the environment. A foundational premise of the National Incident Management System is that all incidents begin and end locally. The local authority having jurisdiction, also known as an AHJ, will likely arrive and establish command of an incident prior to significant railroad response. While multiple stakeholders will be present on the scene of a rail incident involving the release of hazardous materials, it is important to remember key members of the railroad response team will be able to operate in a unified command with a senior transportation official operating as the incident commander for the railroad. The ultimate goal of the railroad is to support the local and state response agencies with the subject matter expertise, personnel, and assets for a safe and efficient outcome. Railroad response assets are strategically staged around the railroad's operating territories and can be rapidly deployed during an emergency. Protecting the public is a top priority during rail incidents. As part of their emergency response plans, railroads work with vetted railroad hazmat response contractors who can supply comprehensive environmental data to local AHJs. This data helps inform critical decisions around shelter-in-place orders and evacuations during an incident. It is important to remember that the railroad does not make decisions regarding evacuations or sheltering in place. This responsibility lies with the local incident commander. However, the railroad's goal is to support local agencies by providing data and assisting with logistics to ensure the safe and efficient relocation of civilians if needed. You should always pre-plan and know which railroads operate in your area and how to contact them. Do not wait until the day an incident occurs to try to figure out which railroad operates the tracks that you are on or who you need to contact. Remember, the information on the ENS sign enables you to reach the railroad responsible for the crossing and to identify the specific crossing in the event of an emergency. If you are dealing with more than one set of tracks at a crossing, confirm that all tracks belong to the same company, as each one may belong to a separate railroad. It is also important to understand that railroads will typically share their locomotives with one another and operate on one another's properties. When a railroad incident involving hazardous materials occurs, the response must be swift, strategic, and informed. This is where railroad hazmat managers or dangerous goods officers play a critical role. Railroad hazmat managers are highly trained professionals specializing in hazardous materials. They bring a wealth of expertise and essential resources to manage and mitigate the incident effectively. Hazmat managers monitor the scene in real time. They can help provide first responders with critical data on the chemical properties, potential hazards, and environmental impacts. Coordination with the railroad is key. During an incident, railroad hazmat managers work closely with local emergency services, shippers and manufacturers, environmental agencies, and railroad officials to develop a unified response strategy. The railroads also work closely with vetted railroad hazmat response contractors that will be responding as supplementary forces to assist first responders in mitigating the release and begin environmental remediation to bring the incident to a safe and controlled conclusion. The railroad's priority is the safety of the community and the environment. Railroad hazmat managers and dangerous goods officers will help implement containment procedures, assist with evacuation if necessary, and work to restore safety and order. With the expertise and dedication of railroad hazmat managers, rail incidents involving hazardous materials are managed with precision and care, ensuring the safety of everyone involved and minimizing environmental impact. Railroad hazmat managers are on the front lines of safety every step of the way.
Early notification to the railroad is extremely important for the safety of everyone on scene. The railroad will be able to control train traffic and make internal notifications to get essential railroad resources to the incident site. Making the decision to take an offensive versus defensive operational approach will fall under the local incident command, but it is critical to involve the responsible party in operational actions and planning. While the local incident command will have authority, the railroad's hazmat managers or dangerous goods officers are technically trained to handle rail incidents involving hazardous materials, and it's vital to involve them throughout the incident.
The initial scene size-up is critical when responding to a potential rail incident. First responders must take the necessary steps to ensure life safety, to include their own. Care must be taken to conduct as much of the size-up process as possible in a position of safety. First responders should train to quickly gather accurate incident information in an expedient manner. All incidents should be approached from an uphill and upwind position if possible. Once on scene, quickly and appropriately implement the proper protective actions based on key size-up factors to help reduce the risk of exposure, injury, or deaths. An effective scene size-up can help save lives and lead to a successful incident outcome. Always remember, your safety comes first during an incident.
If you are a first responder organization and had not had the opportunity to speak with your local hazmat manager or dangerous goods officer, get in contact with your state TransCare rep or TransCare, and they will be sure to get in contact with one of us.
Although Ask Rail provides information on the train, it is critical to work with the operating railroad to get the most current consist on the train. You can access the emergency contact numbers for all the major Class 1 railroads inside the Ask Rail app by tapping Railroad Contact Information at the bottom. The app also contains most of the short line railroads because the response may not always involve only a Class 1 railroad.
If you are interested in learning more about rail safety, hazardous materials, or more about rail cars, we encourage you to view Transcare's entire Seconds Count, Are You Prepared video series located online at transcare.com. Other videos available include Scene Size Up, Protective Action Distances, how to protect yourself when responding on or next to railroad property or right-of-way, Rapid Size Up, recognizing different types of tank cars and locomotive fires. Additionally, you can visit our Rail Safety and Hazardous Materials webpage under the Resources section on the Transcare website for more resources and information from our Class 1, Short Line, and regional railroads. If you are seeking additional training regarding responding to an incident on or near the railroad, or learning more about hazardous materials and tank cars, we encourage you to reach out to your local railroad to schedule training. Transcare, in partnerships with the railroads, also provides online training courses related to rail safety. We encourage you to visit www.hazmatcourses.com to see the courses available 24/7 from multiple railroads operating throughout North America. Before taking any action on railroad property or equipment, please contact your local railroad for more information. Always remember, your safety comes first during an incident.